Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hugnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Listen to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can watch us, of course, on YouTube. We would love it if you would subscribe to the ThunderCast YouTube channel, share the links with your friends so that we can grow this listener base. We are back this week with position group breakdowns. We took a little bit of a hiatus from the series because there was some pretty major news that has happened in the interim. But we're continuing. Only 2 position groups left. Will it be DBs? Will it be quarterbacks? We told you at the end of the pass catchers, wide receivers, tight ends episode that you'd have to tune in to find out. Well, today we're talking about the defensive backs. We're going to close it out with the quarterbacks next week. And this week, it's going to be one of the most dynamic units that they really hit the portal hard on. Defensive backs, safeties, and the like. Russ, good to be back behind the mic with you. I'm excited to talk about some defensive backs. We're starting to get some practice news trickling in now. We're starting to get a little bit of interviews from players and coaches. So we're starting to get a little taste of what this Herd football team is shaping up to be like. Granted, it's very, very, very early on in the fall summer camp session, but we are starting to get some information. And before we get into defensive backs, have you had a chance to listen to some of that stuff?
A little bit. It's whetting that appetite. You know, we're in August. We've got soccer starting up, volleyball starting up, but football starting up. It always tells you when you only have 2 position groups left to cover how close you're getting. And I've been able to listen to a little bit about what Coach Tony Gibson has said about practice, seen some of the small little clips that we've seen of Lork and Quinn kicking a big football. Got Joe Sean Barbie with a big football run, you know, so it's getting us right there.
Yeah, got a little bit of the after practice interviews today. I took in what DC Shannon Morrison had to say, offensive coordinator Rod Smith, and they talked to a few players. I'm not going to give you the spoilers, but I picked up 2 new terms that came either from a coach's mouth or a player's mouth today that I think we're going to start to incorporate in our episodes. So if you hear them today, maybe you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I want to talk about some defensive backs, man. I get excited each and every episode we do a position group because, like you said, it starts to get closer and closer. We're almost there, and I want to talk about it. But first, we've got to get a word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
This is going to be a huge position group of emphasis on this 3-3-5 defense. I think we all know that going in. We think we know what the defensive line is going to be tasked with doing. We think we know what the linebackers are going to be tasked with doing. But a lot of the pressure, I feel like, may also fall on these defensive backs. And if you listen to some of those after practice interviews, you can see that these guys understand how everything has to work synergistically, and it's really cool to listen to. So if you folks aren't listening to those interviews, you can find them, I'm sure, on YouTube with the Martial Athletics YouTube channel. Let's talk DBs. Coached by Jared Hawley, of course, first year with the Herd, but he's got some Sunbelt experience. He was a former coach at James Madison in between his stop here there and here. This was a room that was decimated by the portal, just like everything else. But this one in a particular fashion, between players exhausting eligibility and what the portal taketh, was really, really a big loss. So let's talk about what remains. That's the best place to start. We've got a handful of players that were retained from the 2024 roster into 2025, and I think it starts right at the very top with Jadarius Green-McKnight, a guy that we wondered would come back, would he go, and he decided to stay, and that was really refreshing because he was a really big piece late in the season. He was the reason, I would say, that Marshall goes to the Sun Belt Conference Championship game with that big play he made late in the game against James Madison. So great to see him back on the roster. Also returning, Chashawn Jeter, Caleb Clark-Glover, Jason Haggerty, and Daytwan Smith. Now, before I get some reaction from you, I got to make a note right at the top. I'm looking at the Herd Zone roster. I was in preparation for this, and I think it's really interesting the way that they utilize or list players. Some players are listed as DB. Some players are listed as cornerback. Some players are listed as safety. Some as free safety. So they're kind of all over the place with it, and you really can't nail down. A lot of these guys are just listed as DB. So I don't know what that means wholesale. It's just interesting to me how they identify some of these players. Now, of those 5 I listed, 2 of them are listed as a DB, 2 of them are listed as a corner, and 1 is listed as a safety. And we know that J.D. McKnight plays mostly at safety, yet he's listed as a DB. So how about your just quick reaction on the 5 guys that are returning from the conference or from the Sun Belt Conference Championship herd?
I love it, and it's not just because J.D. McKnight got to get a little bit of experience coming on there at the end of the year. Big play, like you said, huge, massive play. But bringing back Wody, Daytwan Smith, Caleb Clark-Glover, Chashawn Jeter entered the portal and then came back out, decided to stay. Jason Haggerty. We're talking about depth here. We're talking about bringing over the Marshall culture, and I don't mean the previous team. I mean the university, the town, everything about it. It's some mainstays that are here. It's some continuity from, last year to this year. Not talking systems, not talking just football. I'm just talking about you don't want to have every single player be brand new here to Huntington. And Wody has been here since, I think, 2019. It may have been 2018, but, he had the COVID year in there. He had an injury year in there. And, he gets to come back. And what continuity for him to be here to help with that. So I love each and every one of these. It means that we didn't have to go out and get somebody. We knew what we had. And, again, it just brings a little bit of leadership in here.
Well, what this also does out of these 5 guys is you do get a mix of guys almost at every class level. You get J.D. McKnight, who's redshirt senior. You get Daytwan Smith, a redshirt junior, and then Jeter and Clark-Glover, both redshirt sophomores. So a lot of leadership there, and a lot of these are some youngsters that now have been in a winning program, and that program's here. So not only are you talking culture when it comes to the university, but a taste of that football winning culture that so many of us are used to having, it remained in the locker room. And I don't know that you can appreciate anyone more than a guy like J.D. McKnight, because he stuck it out, man. For many years, many seasons, he was, trying to get it right and get it right and get it right. And even earlier in last season, he was still trying to find some real consistency in his game. Yeah. And man, did it hit at the right time. Probably that final third of the season, his game just went to a different level. And then when we really needed it, really had to have it, he came through in a big way up in Harrisonburg, Virginia, with the interception return for touchdown that basically sends the herd to the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. So really glad that guy returned. But I think of these 5 in particular, I think you're going to see maybe 3 or more of them be huge contributors this year on this defense.
Well, how about J.D. McKnight early on when he got here? It was either a practice or maybe the spring game, but I think it was a practice, and there was a video out there of him making that ridiculous interception, the one-hander. You remember that? So we have been hyped for him, his athleticism, everything he brings to the table. Last year we talked about him and his height and weight and how he just seemed to fit that nickel, and maybe we were going to a 4-2-5 and he would be that hybrid kind of guy. And we've been on that train for a long time. He came on last year. I'm with you. I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, I'm really excited for, like I said, all of these guys to return, but JD particularly, I'm really glad he chose to stay. Let's talk about some guys that exhausted eligibility, perhaps not perhaps, the biggest impact player outside of Mike Green on this Herd defense from a year ago, and that's J.J. Roberts. And I'm not sure that you can really call them A and B. They're like A and, 1 and 1A. They were that, J.J. was that impactful. Of course, he graduated, but also entered the NFL and is currently down here where I'm at. He's playing for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And having a really good
looks like he might make that roster as a UDFA, man.
That's right. Having a really, really good preseason, and he has a real chance to stick, it looks like. And does that surprise you? No, it doesn't surprise me. It wouldn't have surprised me if he'd had his name called during the draft either. But once I'm going to say this really quickly. We've talked about it many times. Once you get into those late rounds, it's almost better to not be drafted. That way you can now in the current system field multiple undrafted free agent offers and choose the scenario that's best for you. So JJ seemed to pick a good one. And you're right. It looks like he might stick. Other player exhausting eligibility was Ishmael Roy, graduated. Then we move into the portal. This is where it starts to get really busy really quickly. 14 total players portaled out, 14 players portaled in. So let's talk about who left. Josh Moten, Jacoby Henderson, Amir Foster, Ian Foster, Kalijah Theodore, Ishmael Ibrahim, A.G. McGee, DJ Stepney, Jacob Pinkney, Corey Myrick, Cam Kennard, Malik Caswell, Anthony Richard, and Isaiah Johnson. A lot of impactful players portaled out, left some big holes in this defense, in the secondary particularly, and it was going to be a tall task. We don't usually dwell on the guys that portaled out because they're gone. There's nothing you can do. But hearing those handful of first names, I think a lot of Herd fans are going to be like, dang, because they're names that they heard repeatedly making plays, getting interceptions, and that sort of thing. Let's move to this portal in real quick, and we'll run through that and talk about who we got, where they came from, and give you a little measurables on them. First off, we're going to talk about Kerryon Martin, Boomerang prospect. Remember, was with the Herd, went to Youngstown State, now back with the Herd. 6'1", 224-pound redshirt senior, transferred out as a safety. If you go look on the Herd Zone roster right now, currently listed as a linebacker. And we talked about that. Would he be a hybrid type player? Well, it sure damn well looks like he's going to be, but they're listing him with the linebackers. And I think that has more to do with probably his overall skill set. And because he doesn't really, he's a little bit larger than a lot of the other DBs as far as like weight goes. So it makes sense to have him in a hybrid role. Then we'll go to defensive back, Cam Smith from Jackson State, 6'2", 196. He's a redshirt senior. DB Boogie Trotter, Tennessee State, 5'10", 170-pound senior. DB Daryl Sweeting from Temple, 6', 182-pound redshirt sophomore. Marve Miles, a DB from Middle Tennessee State, 6'1", 200-pound redshirt senior. DB Joshua Pierre Lewis from West Georgia, 5'11", 176-pound redshirt senior. Louis Kinsey Jules from University of Charleston, right down the road, also listed as a DB, 6', 176-pound redshirt sophomore. Safety Zah Jackson, transfer from WVU, 5'10", 185-pound true freshman from Huntington High School. Defensive back Sammy Entienne also from West Virginia University, 5'11", 188-pound, also true freshman. Cornerback Al Ashford from Northern Arizona, 6', 180-pound redshirt sophomore. Safety Pete Shue from Oklahoma, 5'10", 185-pound redshirt junior. Free safety, Ajani, man, this is a tough one. Do you know how to say this name properly? Because I sure don't.
Ajani Cuevas Gillis.
Nailed it. From Santa Barbara Community College, 6', 195-pound redshirt senior. And lastly, defensive back Aiden Willis, the 5'11", 174-pound redshirt freshman. Only one guy from the high school ranks that wasn't a transfer. Yeah, Zah and Sammy are both true freshmen, but they were actually committed somewhere and had to portal. And that's incoming freshman from high school, Cam Neety, 6'2", 190-pound true freshman. Russ, let's talk about this portal in class.
All right, and you may have said these, you probably did, but I had them in a different order here. So did you have Philip Davis and Daniel Harris on there?
Daniel Harris, I did not have on my list. I remember him was like 6'5" from UAB.
Yeah, they have him officially listed right now as 6'4", but I think when he got here, we were talking to him. We had him listed on Twitter, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be playing safety, and I'm actually 6'5".
Right?
So.
Yeah. I do have Philip Davis. I leaped over him on my own list. So defensive back Philip Davis from Michigan State, 6'1", 191-pound red shirt sophomore.
Okay.
That is the portal class and your lone incoming high school freshman. What do you think about this portal class in relation to the holes that were left from the guys that transferred out?
I am extremely bullish on who we brought in. And I think that as we talk about some strengths, as we talk about these players individually, I hope that what we say, I don't know what you're going to say, but I hope what we say as a crew, me and you, might ease a little bit of that pain of what we lost, because we brought in some ballers, and we brought in a lot of depth, a lot of athleticism, and I can't wait to talk about them.
Yeah, so here's some of my favorite things, right? There's 20 total defensive backs listed across all of those, I don't know, position headings, let's call it. And there's a fair amount of senior leadership, youth, impact, along with some guys that are going to need a year. But you need those guys too. You need those guys in your program to kind of not have to learn on the fly. But I still think there are some guys that are going to do that, learning on the fly and succeed at it. When you go up and down the list, like I just am fortunate enough to have it in front of me. So it's a lot easier for me to look at this list than it is for somebody to be listening and, get the same grasp that I have. But when you go up and down the list, it really becomes apparent that they're going to go easily eight deep across safeties, DBs, the whole nine, or safeties and corners, the whole nine. And what we're not talking about is those hybrid guys that we know are on this roster. So like Kerryon Martin, listed as a linebacker, would not shock me one bit to see him drop back in coverage quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
So
and you and I discussed him a lot on the linebacker episode, but during that episode, we both said that, he might be that DJ Hunter kind of role where he's doing both.
Yep. So some of the names that appear on the portal out lists are going to be big shoes to fill. They were very, very, very good players for the Herd last year. But these guys I think we have here, some of them anyway, it's like you can almost go, okay, he cancels him out, he cancels him out, he cancels him out. And you start to get really far down the list before you really start having to dissect the point of like, all right, are we better or not? So I'm ready to get into some of these strengths because we could sit here and talk about this list all day long. I want to talk about what we think these guys are going to do. But we actually have to do projected starters.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's do that first, because I don't want to talk about the strengths. Some of my strengths, would talk about these starters in particular. So I did two cornerbacks who I thought would be the cornerbacks, two safeties, and then that nickel or fifth safety, however you want to look at it.
I mean, you can pretty much say I did the same thing. So, I did five guys since it's a 3-3-5. But I also, for the first time in the series, listed a handful of what I'm calling early in guys, the guys that I think are going to be the first ones, in. So who you got leading it off? I am curious to see if we're going to go 5 for 5 here. I bet you we at least go 3 for 5.
I'm going to bet we go 4 for 5.
Okay.
If I was doing an over under, I would say over 3. Okay. All right. I'm going to go cornerbacks first. I'm going number 1, Boogie Trotter.
Number 1, Boogie Trotter, 5'10", 170-pound senior. Take it away with what you like about him.
Playmaker. Immediately, that's what you think of. The film that we saw from his career so far, and then in the spring game, and just what he has said on social media of, I expect to win the award for the best defensive back in the country. Confidence is there, but he backs it up with his play. And you can see, I mean, he is just a touchdown waiting to happen to take it the other way from jumping a route or, just making a great play and then turning on the speed. He seems to find a lot of field that is open in front of him after he makes a play. Again, he had 2 picks in the spring game, and one was a pick 6 that he could have walked in.
When you think about a guy like Boogie Trotter, there are so many adjectives that kind of come to your mind, but to me, the first one that I think of is dynamic. Because the guy can cover so much ground. So he's got excellent coverage skills. He's got excellent speed. He's a senior, for crying out loud. So there's not going to be too many game environments. And I mean, look, we're opening in Athens, Georgia, and that's going to be an environment that's unlike anything we're going to play all year long. And it's probably unlike anything that most, if not all of these guys on this roster have played in. But there are not going to be too many environments that a guy like Boogie Trotter hasn't been in. When you're a senior and you've got impactful plays already that you can go find on YouTube and you can enjoy the highlights, how do you not think he's the first guy off the field or off the roster to be your DB1, as it were, just our first pick? I love the guy, and it doesn't hurt that he's got an all-time great name to go with it. I mean, I think it's going to be instant fan favorite. Instant. He already is for a lot of people if you peruse the social media circles like we do.
Yeah.
But I think probably after those first couple of games, you're looking at a guy that everybody is going to be rooting for. Who's your number 2 on this list?
Still in cornerbacks here, I'm going with Daryl Sweeting.
2 for 2, going with Daryl Sweeting.
Then we're going to be 5 for 5.
6 foot, 182-pound redshirt sophomore might make somebody scratch their head to go, huh? Really? Redshirt sophomore with this kind of senior-laden transfer class and a couple of seniors that return? Yeah. He's just that good. The guy, he comes from Temple. As a matter of fact, just today, I was watching the post-practice interviews, and, coaches are very
tight-lipped.
Very.
Yeah.
But it slipped, Coach Morrison was asked about some guys that might be making some strides. And I thought it was funny. Keith Morehouse, I think it was Keith that said, I know you're not big on giving compliments, Shannon. And he's like, yeah, no, this is football. We don't give compliments. Yeah. But he asked him about some guys that are kind of making some strides and, looking pretty good. And he mentioned Daryl Sweeting. Of course, he just called him Sweet, but so that made me perk up. It's like, all right, you got a youngster here that's going to make some waves. Of course, redshirt sophomore, by then you're 3 years into college football career, so it's not like you're brand new, but still, I was wondering if you would have that. Another dynamic playmaker, another guy who's got a knack for getting to the football. This defense secondary is going to be pretty exciting. What overall, though, do you like about Daryl?
I liked some of the clips that I saw about him. I liked his offers coming out. I liked that he just seemed like the kind of guy that is going to thrive under a Tony Gibson, Shannon Morrison style defense. And I like that when you see the cornerback room, especially Boogie and Daryl, and then another person that I'm not going to name yet because we're going to talk about it in just a second. But you see them taking photos together, and it just seems like they are already a unit and they are already close. That goes a long way with me. Now, I mean, that guy might be, third off the depth chart or something, he might be second on the depth chart, third to enter the game or whatever, and he's taking a photo on social media that you can't read into all that. But what I can see is the same type of swagger that I see out of Boogie, I see out of Daryl Sweeting, I see out of the other players that we're getting ready to talk about here in a minute.
To be named. So enough with the delay.
Yeah, let's just talk about I'm on safeties now. Marvay Myers.
Marvay Myers, 6'1", 200-pound redshirt senior from Middle Tennessee State. 3 for 3 out of the gate here. You're right, and I listened to Marvay speak a little bit today after practice, and he was asked about how are you guys essentially, how are you guys gelling? How are you getting along? And he's like, it doesn't take long. We spend a lot of time with each other. We're always either breaking down film or watching or eating together, or we're practicing together, or whatever. And it seems like it's three guys particularly that are on a mission. And it's like they all want to equally succeed, right? But they also want to outdo each other, which is going to be very hard to do, and a friendly competition type of thing. But you got three dynamic playmakers like that are all pushing each other every single day to be the best version of themselves. Man, that's got to set up really good for Marshall fans, Marshall football, and a win-loss record. So 3 for 3 out of the gate. Who's your fourth?
Fourth, still on safety, I'm going Cam Smith.
Oh my goodness!
I told you it was going to be at least 4 out of 5, but I had with Daryl Sweeting was the only thing that I thought maybe you'd have somebody else, and I'm going to talk about him in heavy contributors, but I knew that we were going to have 4 of them.
I thought it would be Cam Smith is where we were going to be different, but 6'2", 196-pound redshirt senior, take it away.
Well, he's a senior. And he is someone that went down to SBC Media Days, and you don't take somebody down there unless they are a leader. And if you've got a senior defensive back and he is the person that you picked out of your defense to take down there to be the representative, and you see how calm, collected, and confident that he was when he was talking, he just seemed to be that silent leader. You remember a couple of years ago, we were talking about when people went down there that it was their first time that we were going to hear him a lot. And you're like, we never hear anything out of this guy. He was totally off my radar as someone that might be an outspoken leader. And you could tell when he was there with his composure that he probably is that locker room leader. He's just not going to be the guy that's, being flashy on social media or things like that. He's going to back it up in the locker room and on the field.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's his game. His game seems to be like, I don't need to talk because my play does my talking. Not that these other guys are their play doesn't speak for them as also.
That's right.
But I feel like he likes to take that approach.
Yeah.
So the leadership qualities feel like they're off the charts with this guy. It feels like the center fielder, as it were, that's going to make sure everybody's lined up in the right spot, that's everybody's on the same page, like all of that. And yet another senior / red shirt senior in this defensive backfield, dude. It feels really, really good all of a sudden. And we're only 4 out of 5 in. And we've already started talking senior, red shirt senior, and one stud red shirt sophomore. So let's go 5 for 5. Who is it?
Jadarius Green-McKnight.
It is. It's JD.
He's coming back. He came on late, like you said. He's a senior. Besides Sweeting, we've got 4 seniors right here, and then some coming off the bench. But it just feels right that he is that guy that will be there in the nickel. He played a lot of that last year. He would be that 5th defensive back. He would be that guy that can jump that route. He is athletic. It seems like he has lost a little bit of weight. I'm going off of memory. We talked about him being up around that 210 mark last year, I think it was. And that's why we said, it looks like he's bulked up a little bit and might be doing that hybrid role and, be that heavy hitter in the defensive backfield when we were talking about it. And this time I think that he is back down a little bit leaner. Do you have the height and weight there? Is he down under 200 now?
Well, he was listed at 198 last year, but I feel like we were talking about him at like 205 or
he was 205 to 210. Yeah, I think
something
that
like
he had
that.
put on a little bit of weight, and I think that when they updated the roster, I've got it somewhere
right here. Here's in 2023, he was over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's changed his body enough. I mean, dang, 10 pounds is nothing to sneeze at, I think you're right. I mean, how do you not have JD McKnight back there? A guy that has now been here, 4 years, and chose to remain when it seemed like the cool thing to do to leave. And he was one of those guys. Nah, I'm staying. It's not the cool thing to do. This is my home now. And you don't stay if you don't think you're going to play. And he played last year and he played the year before that. So I haven't seen anybody come in that is just going to like absolutely 100% without a doubt dethrone him from what he does so well. And now he's going to be a cog in a defense that is even more flexible to his skill set. How can you not start the guy? So I can't believe it, but we did. We went 5 for 5. How many guys do you want to talk about here? I have just 4 I jotted down, but
I have 6, and I'm calling them heavy contributors. I know you said early entry guys, but I'm just going to tell them all 6 of mine right now, and we can talk after we've got some overlap or whatever you want to do. But I've got Josh Pierre-Louis. He's also a senior. He's familiar with Tony Gibson as a defensive guy. He went there and then transferred to West Georgia for last year or whatever, but he knows this defense. He's a senior, and the head coach is familiar with him. I've also got Wody. Wody we talked about already and what he brings to the table. Lua Kinsey-Jules, I think, is very intriguing to me with his athleticism and everything, and he might have been overlooked by some people because of the level that he was at. But Tony Gibson knows West Virginia players. Al Ashford III, Tashawn Jeter, who is coming back, and then Daniel Harris, that 6'4" freak playing safety that we talked about, because every place was listing him as like 6'4", 205, runs a 4.4 or something, whatever it was. And you're just like, man, that is somebody to have back there for a jump ball situation. So that's the 6 heavy contributors is what I called them.
So we matched right out of the gate with Josh Pierre-Louis and Daytwan Smith as the first 2 guys that I had written down as well. Also have Tashawn Jeter. He's another guy that coach has actually mentioned by name that is actually impressing day over day. So if they like what they see, then I like what I see, right? So I also listed Caleb Clark-Glover, another returning player, youngster guy that I think is going to make a leap this year. Had I gone to 6, I probably would have listed Harris and Lou Kinsey-Jules, because I remember when he committed from UC, there were several people that pay closer attention to UC ball, like that local area media folks type, and they were like, oh, wow, big pickup there for the herd out of the University of Charleston. So, a lot of people will be quick to go, but it's UC, man. It's D2 or whatever it is. And you're like, that just ain't the same. If you can play, you can play. Right. How many people said the same thing about other players of ours that went on to have successful collegiate careers, were all-time greats here, and, maybe made a run at the league and had a good, decent career at the league. So
that's right.
I think we would have had several of the same. Let's move into some strengths here. I did 3 and 3. So
I've got 4 and 3.
Cool. Give me that first one.
Depth. I feel like that is one of the things that might shock some people when you have so many transfers. But we went out and just absolutely restocked the cupboard. And we have what you were talking about. You've got some people that have been there for a while. You've got some youngsters mixed in and everything. But you've got a very good mix of different styles of cornerbacks and safeties, and some strong safeties versus that center fielder free safety, and some nickel backs and things. I think that we have good depth at all 3, whatever you want to call them, 4, whatever you want to call them, positions in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, had I gone 4 strengths, that would have been my 4th strength. And I jot these down really in no particular order outside of what I think the number 1 strength is. But it's obvious. Like, you lose 14, you go out and get 14. And like I said earlier in the episode, when you start to just mark a line out, well, okay, this guy transferred out, but this guy transferred in, and they cancel each other out, you get really far down the list before you start having to split hairs. And I think they're hairs that aren't worth splitting, because the impact guys, I think, were reloaded in the right way. Depth is absolutely a strength of this unit, which sounds so crazy to say when you flipped over almost the entire room, and many of your big contributors and starters are going to be new to the program. My number 1 overall strength is actually a 2-faceted thing. I think we have speed to kill in this unit, and we have excellent ball skills. We saw it firsthand in the spring game. We've seen it in some of the stuff that's out there that Marshall's putting out. But if you go look at some of these transfer highlights on YouTube, you can see these guys are really good at locating the football and chasing down the football. And I think you got to have that. I mean, speed is always going to be the great equalizer. But in a defensive backfield that's going to be tasked with doing the things that this one's doing, the more players that have above average to excellent ball skills, I believe is a huge strength. It's one thing to just be fast, but if you can't do anything with that speed once you get to where you need to be, then you can just run fast. That's basically all that means. So there's a lot of speed and a lot of ball skills that I think are going to be massively impactful over the course of a football season for the Herd. What's your number 2?
Well, I'm going to skip around and I'm going to echo what you just said. I called it playmaking ability, and it's the same thing. And you've got those guys that can jump the routes. You got those guys that know when to not go for the interception and just make that pass breakup so they don't get burned. You've got that speed to close. And you're right. Everything you said, I just called it playmaking ability, but I have that exact same thing.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go to my next one, which I think is these guys, not only do they have speed and ball skills, they went out and recruited guys out of the portal that are really very good tacklers. So they're going to limit that damage after the catch. They're going to be able to play closer to the line of scrimmage, which is something I think they're going to have to do, given the fact that you're down one defensive lineman, that you're not making up for it on the second level. You're 3-3-5 here. So the fifth guy, is a defensive back. So by nature, a little bit smaller statured guy, and you're going to have to play probably a little bit more in the run support game. So you go out and you focus on skill, on a skill set that matches that. So you get guys that can cover, and you go get guys that can do damage in the run game and play a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. What do you got?
All right, I've got swagger. And I like that these guys are already saying things like, I'm going to win the award for the best defensive back in the country. I like the guys that are out here taking those selfies or, the promo shots and posting them. I like that they're taking as a group and that they're basically saying, we're going to do some stuff this year. You just watch us. Watch what we're going to do. And can they back it up? We've seen the tape. Yes, they can. This is not incoming high school kids shouting out, watch me. These are guys that have shown it. You can see it. And they're saying, look out. I think there's a big difference from that. And if you're going to have somebody that has swagger, you want a quarterback that has that. You want that guy that doesn't care, will get hit in the chin, throw 8 interceptions, get right back up, and then throw 5 touchdowns to win the game. You can't shake him. You want defensive backs that are going to come out there to have swagger. All the greats have it. You hardly ever see somebody that you say, man, he's electric on the field, but he never tells anybody about it. I like that. And I am counting that as a strength because that shows me the confidence that they have in themselves and their unit.
Yeah, now that used to be one of the 2 positions, really, like defensive back and wide receiver. You could get away with having extra swagger. But nowadays, almost everybody has it in just about every position. But I know what you're saying, and I think it matters a little bit more when it comes out of your DB. That's got to be one of the hardest positions to play. Defense as pretty much by and large is reactionary, right? They don't know what's going to happen. They have to react to what the offense's play they're going to run. The offense knows what they're getting ready to do. The defense has to react to that. And it is incredibly hard to go toe-to-toe and run inside somebody's hip pocket that might be 4 inches taller than you, and be able to do that all game long and be impactful, get those pass breakups and come down with that interception. And yeah, you're going to get burned from time to time, but it can't shake you. You have to be able to just get right back up and line right back up and then go make a play. And swagger matters from a defensive back. It really does, because that means they have a high level of confidence, and generally that means they're playing faster and playing better. Excellent point. My number 3 strength of this overall unit is that they went out, this coaching staff went out and got instant impact transfers to fill the immediate gaps. This is not like we're a year away. These guys went out and recruited players to win games right now. And that is a huge, huge strength. If you just went by the list of guys that transferred out, you would start to get really worried about, are we going to be able to effectively defend the forward pass?
Mm-hmm.
But when you take time and you legitimately dig into the roster and you go watch some of the highlight tapes and you go allow yourself to immerse yourself in this position group, you go find really quickly that they went and recruited and signed instant impact players that offset so much of what we lost. Did they offset it all? No, absolutely not. But they offset a massive amount of the lost production with guys that can come in, play immediately. They don't have to get their feet wet. They know how to play the game, and they're ready to play the game. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I got one more, and it's that we are senior heavy in the 2 deep. And it's exactly what you said. They're bringing in impact players, and it's because they've been around to be able to do that. 4 out of the 5 that we agreed on to be starters are seniors. One of the first ones off the bench that we feel like would be there is a senior. Wody, Daytwan Smith, he has been here long enough. I think he has graduated. He's listed as a redshirt junior officially on the roster, but I'm fairly certain that, he has been here for 5 years, or this may be his 6th year because of the COVID and the injury. We have a lot of guys that have been in college 4 years, 5 years, that have been in the programs, they've been in the games, they've got that experience, and that has to play when you're replacing basically an entire room. You're replacing 15 out of 20 left. So I think that speaks volumes. Exactly what you said. We went out and got the guys that fit the need, but we got the guys that had been there, that not the redshirt freshman guys that seem like maybe they can play. We got the guys that have been doing it for 3 going on 4 years.
Yeah, we didn't get the guys that seem like they might play. We went and got the guys that can play.
Yeah.
But it ain't all sunshine and rainbows, and we know there's going to be lumps along the way, and we're going to be griping along with all the other fans when things don't go the right way. So let's talk about some weaknesses. What's your number one overall weakness to this unit?
As always, it's the unknown when you're replacing pretty much everything we've talked about for everything that we've done on this year. Every preview that we've done has been the unknown. It's all brand new. How will they perform as a unit? Since we have not seen it, I see and hear all the stuff coming out of practice. I see the stuff on social media. But when the rubber meets the road and we're out there on the field, will they perform well as a unit, or will there be some growing pains?
Yeah. So that seems to be the flavor of the season, right? It's like we don't know what the hell we have until we know what we have. My number one weakness is something that I alluded to sort of in the strengths when I was talking about very good tacklers. And and the weakness to me is more might be asked of these defensive backs to play tighter coverages so that they can better contribute to the run defense. I mean, for years, how many times have we heard fans and ourselves going, why are we giving a 10-yard cushion? Why are we doing that, right? Well, I don't know that we're going to have the luxury, if you want to call it that, finger quotes, luxury of doing that, because these guys also have to contribute to the run defense. If you get 3 on the first line of defense, 3 on the second line of defense, it only stands to reason that you're going to have to be more available in the run defense category. Now, it's not an indictment of how good the tacklers they are. That, to me, I think is a strength. I think overall, it may be a weakness because it adds a little bit more pressure to what you might be wanting to do. You may, be used to playing off a little bit more. I mean, who the hell plays bump and run in college? Nobody that I know. Yeah. I mean, very few. But that 10-yard gap might be shrunken down to 6 yards, 5 yards, right? because you have to be able to recognize that it's a run play and maybe be another defender that can play closer to the line of scrimmage. That to me could potentially be a weakness if you get caught with the wrong personnel and somebody that's just not as adept at doing that and needs to be 7-8 yards off to be more effective as a coverage DB. What's your number 2 weakness?
There is no J.J. Roberts. Now, we might have somebody that ends up playing like he did or whatever, but that guy was the heart and soul of the defense for me. Mike Green blew him away, even as great as he was. Mike Green and the stats that he put up, you just do not see. J.J. Roberts is the only other person on the field that was putting up anything close to him. Plus, he just seemed to have that heart of what it meant as a local kid to be here, coming back from that devastating injury that we had, a true players fan, a true player for the fans player, and just he backed it up. I mean, he did everything. And I know this is not the special teams thing, but he excelled on special teams. He just did every single thing that you needed a player to do. And he is now going to the NFL, and he's not walking out of that tunnel. It's a weakness not having him.
It's an absolute weakness. It's one of my weaknesses. Losing J.J. Roberts leaves undefinable hole in the defense. We know what statistically he meant on paper, right, and what he tallied over the year. But when you talk about the intangibles, and, a guy late in the fourth quarter in a tight game can look over at JJ and still see he's given 100%, and that forces you to dig a little deeper and give 100%. Those are things that don't still show up on a stat sheet, man. And JJ was about as authentic of a human being that we may have ever had come through the Marshall football program. And unapologetically himself in the best way possible. And I think folks rallied around that authenticity. They rallied around the fact that he shares a story with a lot of guys that are on the roster now. He was a big high school recruit, left the state, tried to do something different, decided, you know what, maybe I want to finish it up at Marshall, and came back and gave us a couple of great seasons. I mean, really good seasons. Turned himself into a campus legend in a short amount of time. When you lead the country in categories, that means that you're among the best, obviously, in the country. But then you go and make a run at the NFL, and you're succeeding, and you're proving what you already knew about yourself. So losing J.J. Roberts leaves an undefinable hole at this point that needs to be filled, which might take 2 to 3 players to accomplish, in the aggregate, and I'm not sure that you're still going to even be able to do it. That guy's game was so complete, and he was just always around the ball. And usually those guys just don't walk through the door. I sure as hell hope there's 1 or 2 that are going to be able to make up for a lot of that production and leadership and the intangibles. But he's a special guy that, let's face it, we talked about Mike Green being a generational player. So was JJ. He was a generational player for this young generation of Herd fans to call their own legend, just like Mike. So what's your other weakness if you have one?
Can we replace last year's production? It's a lot about what we were just talking about with JJ and had to replace his stuff. But we had 13 interceptions, which is 1 a game, 54 pass breakups. That's a lot, and that game-turning pick 6, I mean, that's a lot of production. I didn't get into the tackles. It was a lot because JJ himself had a bunch. But we are missing a lot of turnovers when we start. We're missing a lot of pass breakups. If we can duplicate that, I think we're going to have an amazing year defensively. But it's a tall task because you've got to average an interception a game. You've got to average 4 pass breakups a game. That's 5 different times that a quarterback is dropping back to pass that he's not getting a reception and any yards, and at least one of those, you're turning the ball over and getting an opportunity to go down the score. I think pretty much any team would love to have those stats. Everybody'd love to have more than that, but that right there, that's a good season.
Yeah, it's like the benchmark for what you need to have. And still, even with all that production, Marshall allowed some things to go wrong and came up on the wrong side of the ball of the game a few times.
Yep.
So it's a absolutely valid weakness. And I want to just touch on the fact that, you talk about what we call impact plays, right? Pass breakups and interceptions and fumbles and fumble recoveries and stuff. But it's also those, we had blocked field goals that went for scores last year, So, I mean, there's
when I was looking at this, I said, I'm not going to delve into everything they did on special teams because that's special teams and we've already talked about it. We don't know who's going to play special teams and be impact this year and stuff like that. But our defensive backs from last year, you're missing Ian Foster, and he was Mr. Special Teams on both sides of the ball, and that Jacoby Henderson and J.J. Roberts duo for that on 75 week. And, I mean, there was a lot there, so we didn't just lose the performance from the defensive backfield. We lost, locker room, sideline, special teams, defensive backs. I mean, we lost a lot. So it's a lot to replace. So, they've got a tall task in front of them. I have that as a weakness.
Yeah, I think my last weakness is going to be the fact that you faced the Georgia Bulldogs in week 1.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a team that could really wreak havoc on your defensive backfield. I mean, it's in this day and age of college football, stuff like that really isn't fair a lot of times because we've mentioned them many times. You're going to be going up with first, second, third round NFL draft picks at virtual somebody at pretty much every position that they have. And nothing against our guys, but Georgia's wide receiving core is probably going to be deeper than Marshall's defensive back room, right? And that's not that's not anything bad to say, but that's a huge right out of the gate. You're going to be tested like you're not going to be tested for the rest of the year, and that can be a real, I don't know, confidence crusher. I mean, for all the swagger you have, if you find yourself in a position you just can't make any plays, that's a crusher. Luckily you get to come back and you'll play a lot more favorable out of conference schedule. But to have Georgia right out of the gate, I think is just going to be tough. And it's just it's a glaring weakness when you're talking about this much new versus what we lost. I wouldn't feel great about it if a lot of the guys stayed, and play. It's just Georgia's a different animal,
That's
man.
Right.
These guys are going to play for a national championship probably or be in the playoff without a doubt. So other than that, I mean, I feel pretty okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a handful of questions and we'll get the heck out of here.
All right.
Who's the biggest loss from this room from a year ago?
J.J. Roberts, full stop.
Yeah, hands down, not even a question.
Yeah.
Who are you most excited to see, though, out of this defensive back unit in 2025?
Boogie Trotter. And I have a little tidbit about Mr. Boogie. I actually, he made a post on Twitter that said, hey, let me know about anything that is going on with kids in the community. I want to immerse myself in the community. I want to go do that. So I just let him know it had nothing to do with me. I just was aware of it. And I said, hey, send me a DM, and he did. And I said, I didn't want to put this out there publicly just in case there were people seeing where you were going and just, bombard you and take away from your experience with kids or whatever. But I said, this is something that's on campus. I know about it because my kids go there to the rec center, but they are doing this upcoming week. They are doing a cardboard boat race. They do it every year at the rec center for their summer camp, and they're racing in the pool. And I was like, it's kids, and they're making a boat. And they work on it all week, and then they get to go do it. And he said, I'm there. And I was there. He came in. He came over to talk to me and everything. But that is a special person. And I'm excited to see from everything that he has done, from trying to immerse himself into this community, which I think that he has, from the statements that he has made, the performance he did at the spring game, and the tapes that we saw before he came here. He is just that person that I am so excited to see what he can do. And I can't wait to see a pick 6 or 2 or something against Georgia that like that would make, I mean, we would just explode, you know?
Yeah. Well, people are going to accuse us of trading notes before we do these episodes, even though I swear that we do not. I am most excited to see Boogie Trotter in 2025 from this defensive backfield, because I think he's just, in a word, electric. And I want an electric defensive back. I want somebody who's just going to light it up all game, all season, who's going to be the guy that shuts down half of the field, that makes the exciting interception, that lays the lumber for a time or two throughout a game. And I think Boogie's the guy that can do all of that. There are a number of guys, but based on what I saw in limited action, like my limited viewing action at the spring game, he's the guy that I want, that I'm most excited to see. Who's your breakout player in 2025?
It's too sweet, Daryl Sweeting, and I've got a tidbit about him. Where did he play high school, or who did he play high school ball for? A guy goes by the name of Eric Kresser that Herd fans might be aware of. But I just get the feeling that he's the younger statesman of who we feel is going to be the 5 starters. I think that he is going to have that breakout year that everyone's expecting from what they've seen of these seniors to do it, but he's going to be that guy that comes out of nowhere, and you might see him kind of reminds me of Iceman or Gilmore or something. So I really think that he's got a good shot at it.
That is an excellent comparison, right? Because you mentioned Micah Abraham, and I vividly remember him as a freshman thinking, man, who is this kid? This kid's great, you know? And then he went over a number change and kind of, you know, did he fly under the radar for the man? He was just good, really good. He just got better every single year. My breakout player for 2025 is Daryl Sweeting. I can't believe this, man. And I chose him because he is a redshirt sophomore, and for the reasons that everybody else is pretty much a senior, redshirt junior, that kind of thing. And he's getting hype by name from coaches, and that goes somewhere with me. I can speculate all that I want, but when I hear the people that are on the field literally being paid to watch what these guys are doing and put the best 11 out there, and he's getting praise, I think that means something. So I'm going to go with it. Give me Daryl Sweeting as my breakout defensive back in 2025. Holy moly.
If we have these next two the same, I'm not going to let other people accuse. I'm going to accuse you of somehow breaking into my computer when I made these notes. But
I cannot believe it if our sleepers would be the same. I only have one, by the way. Before that, though, who's your MVP of the unit?
Marvay Myers. He's a senior. He's built different. You know, I mentioned that before when we were on other shows, and you know, you can just tell this guy is all that in the weight room, and he's going to be a physical guy. And you know, it's often that those interceptions from the cornerbacks, you know, with the swagger, get the publicity and everything. But just look at J.J. Roberts last year in that safety spot with all the tackles that he had. Do you remember? I mean, you know, we were talking about these guys. They went out and got some tacklers, but J.J. Roberts seemed to be shot out of a freaking cannon and would get a stop in open field, you know, nobody within 8 yards of the guy. And he just came out of nowhere, dove, got the guy by the ankles, textbook tackle, didn't let them even get back to the line of scrimmage. And he was the MVP. So I'm looking at not duplicating exactly what J.J. Roberts did, but the kind of things, a lot of tackles, making the tackles that we need to do, getting the interceptions, getting the pass breakups, all that stuff. I'm going with Marvay Myers as the MVP.
Excellent freaking pick. No one is going to accuse us of stealing. This is where we differentiate. I'm throwing some love to the guy that stuck around. Give me J.D. McKnight for the MVP of the unit because of where he might be playing all over the freaking field, man.
Good pick.
His skill set just says MVP. He can play safety. He can line you up at corner. He can be that hybrid guy. He can be your nickel. I just feel like it's going to be hard for him to come off of the field. There's always somewhere you can plug him in to remain on the field in any given personnel set. And I think it all adds up at the end of the year to being the MVP. I appreciate the hell out of him for choosing to remain at Marshall. And he closed out last year on such a high note. I feel like that's carrying over this year, and he's just going to run with it in his final year in Kelly Green. Give me Jadarius Green-McKnight as my MVP from the DBs in 2025.
Good pick. Good pick.
Who is your sleeper pick?
I have one, but I have to give the honorable mention shout out to Daniel Harris for everything we talked about earlier, for being a 6'4" safety that apparently runs a 4.4 or maybe even better. But I mean, daggone, the intangibles with that just seem to leap out. But my sleeper, we talked about him earlier, and I think under the radar, it doesn't get any more under the radar than Lua Kinsey Jules from the University of Charleston, because it's the University of Charleston. But you go and look at some of the transfer ratings, this guy, he was actually rated slightly better as a transfer than Darryl Sweeting, who I think has got an amazing upside and is going to be a starter, you know? And all of that screams to me, everyone's going to overlook this guy. He's the sleeper pick for me.
Back on the train again. Lua Kinsey Jules is the sleeper for 2025 because nobody expects a University of Charleston prospect to come into Huntington, West Virginia and make any sort of noise in 2025. Yet, there's one on the roster that is poised to do just that. I think as a youngster, that is one facet. The fact you're coming from, an hour down the road, University of Charleston, is another factor. This guy, along with Darryl Sweeting, along with Entienne, you're looking at the future of the Marshall defensive backfield right here. Those four guys in particular. And I want to give an honorable mention as well. He was not my pick, but damn close. I'm giving a shout out to Sean Jeter, another redshirt sophomore that I feel like is going to be a contributor this year. 6'1", 180, remained on the roster from last year. I mean, you got to give these guys some love, right? Because it's hard to retain your players, and this group of 4, 5, 6, if you count Caleb Clark Glover, all freshmen and redshirt sophomores. Man, this is the future of the Herd defensive backfield, potentially, maybe as early as next year.
Yeah, because you're going to have a lot of graduating seniors.
You are going to have a lot of graduating seniors. So, excellent pick, man. Lua Kinsey Jules. I'm glad we matched out of all of them. I'm glad that's the one we matched. I did not think we would be matching on the sleeper picks. Final question of the day. Are we better in 2025 than we were in 2024?
This is going to be controversial. Yes, we will. And it is going to be such a steep obstacle to jump over to do that because of J.J. Roberts and his production and his leadership and those tackles that we talked about and everything about it. But I feel like last year, the production, there was so much of a high ceiling, but we also, like you said, gave away some, a lot of yardage in some games, gave away some touchdowns in some games and things like that. I feel like we are going to be more baseline consistent with this group. And I feel like that will inevitably, when you compare it at the end of the year, that we are going to be better, because it's not that we're not going to reach the highs that they are. I just feel like we're not going to go down to the lows that we had last year, if that makes sense. So I think that our lows will be closer to the baseline center, and our highs may be just as equal or approaching equal. And when you look at that over the course of the year, we may have more turnovers forced. We may have more pass breakups, and we may just not give up as many touchdowns through the air or first downs or big yardage games. So I think, yes, at the end of the day, tall task indeed, We are going to be better.
So what I deduced from what you said is you feel like the floor got a little higher.
Yeah.
The ceiling might have gotten a little lower, but
Maybe.
that range says more overall consistency.
Yes.
And that's what you want, right? Sadly, I do not think we are going to be better this year than we were last year. And the point that I made earlier about going through the portal and just canceling guys out with guys that came in, that holds. What you can't do is do that with JJ Roberts. He is the sole reason that we are not going to be better this year than we were last year. If he would have had one more year of eligibility and he would have been on this defense, slam dunk without a doubt, I would say we're going to be better than we were last year. He is just so irreplaceable by one guy. It might take two, maybe three. That factor alone, I cannot bring myself to say that we as an overall unit will be better because of the impact play of one guy was so great.
Very fair. Very fair.
Is it close? Yeah, it's probably closer than farther away, but we're just not there. JJ meant that much to me personally as a fan watching it in real time, and I just think he meant that much to the defense. If you got any other points, any other tidbits or anything you'd like to say, let me have it. Otherwise, let's take it out.
Whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Jack, or whether you see us at the Cam, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. Tune in next week because it's the last position group. We're talking about the quarterbacks. We'll see you next week. Later.